So diurnal is that the way we function with the energy of the sun. We function better in the day. For example, plants cannot do photosynthesis, which is a process by which they make food at night. They just can't do it. Similarly, mammals are divided into diurnal and nocturnal, right? So, for example, bats and owls, you'll see them come out at night. There's certain animals that feed at night because their digestive systems are made in a way that they do not require energy from the sun. We are designed to wake up with the sun and kind of sleep with the sun. But of course, as human beings, because we are the most intelligent species, we've really altered our way of living. A lot of people are like, hey, I'm a night owl, or like, I'm a night animal. That's not actually natural for your body. We can do everything because we do have more power than a lot of other species on the planet. But you will not see that suddenly, an animal is, like a deer is like, hey, today I'm not going to eat in the day. I'm just going to eat a heavy dinner. That does not happen in animal life. They're still very close to their natural instincts and they keep that alive. So we're going to talk about this concept that we are diurnal mammals, which means we function really well with the cycle of the sun. And what is it that, like, what is it that we take from that? What this also means is that there's certain energies, or our body has a certain environment during the different periods of the day and different periods of night. Different neurotransmitters and chemicals. Neurotransmitters are basically these chemicals that tell your nervous system what needs to be done. And different neurotransmitters are released depending on what the time of the day is. Different hormones are released depending on what the time of the day, because that's just how we're designed. When we go against it, we swim against the tide, which means that let's say you have to move a lot of furniture and there's like 10 people, you have 10 laborers in your house sitting and doing nothing. And instead of saying that, hey, let me move my furniture for, now because I have help, to go against this is like, I don't have anybody and now I'm going to try and move my furniture. So when we go against these cycles, which we're going to be talking about, we are asking our body to function, to work at a time in the day on a certain activity. For example, digestion. For example, eating late dinner at 10 p.m. at night. It's like saying that none of my digestive enzymes are out and ready. My body is really not ready to do this. And now I'm going to ask it to digest a heavy dinner. So those kind of concepts, honoring when your body is supporting a certain function and doing that function, doing that activity at that time, is really, really taking you so much closer to health. Which means that the amount of indulgence you can have, if you understand these principles, right? Eating your heavy junk foods in the lunchtime and less at dinner time, all of those. And the minute you understand these principles, you actually get a lot of leeway to live the life that you want to live, to indulge everything, all that you want, once you know the timing and how to do it. Like, there's nothing that I don't eat, but I know when to eat it and how to eat it. Yep, I'll talk about fasting as well, Galaxy. I will take some of these questions. They're all very good ones. So I just want to give you a circadian rhythm chart. And it's amazing that this concept of circadian rhythm, which has taken a big, taken the whole West by, just taking the attention of everybody, is the concept of, the cycle of the sun is called a circadian rhythm. And they've barely begun to understand in the West that this happens, that our body functions according to the sun. In Ayurveda, they actually gave these cycles precisely like this. It is mentioned like this exactly in the text. So let's talk about what's happening in the day and what does it mean for us. Early in the morning, between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m., what happens is that the whole universe, so to look outside to know what's happening inside, right? The universe is wet and sluggish. There's dew if you wake up. You walk on empty grass with bare feet. It's wet, and it's that kind of thing. Even your system is wet and sluggish. How do I know? Is because if you have any congestion, right, that happens when you wake up. People have eye boogers sometimes when we wake up. When you exercise in the morning, your body is stiffer. Your joints are actually more sluggish in the morning. So your body is wet and sluggish. Intuitively, what is the right thing to do between that time? Is warm up, exercise, get moving. You got to warm up your body, get it lubricated, get it set for the day because it's wet and sluggish. For food, So the one thing that I don't do at all, look, I'm a fruit lover and I wanted to wake up to fruit. I wanted to sleep to fruit. I wanted to breathe to fruit growing up because that's how much I loved fruit. And I suffered from tremendous, tremendous allergies to the point that my sisters were like, you cannot sleep in our room because you're always going to be sneezing. And I don't anymore. And because I understood for myself that eating fruit first thing in the morning, as much as it's recommended, and I ask people to just try this for themselves for 2 3 weeks, and I cannot even tell you how much of a game changer it is for them. So fruit is not the first thing. Warm breakfast, a warm beverage, whether the warm beverage is a glass of spiced milk, whether it's a warm porridge, whether it's a warm oatmeal with, a little bit of cinnamon. I always add a good spice to everything. Sometimes even elaichi or cardamom, if you want to keep things sweet instead of savory. That's your morning time, morning affair. What happens between 10 and 2? The sun is at its peak. When the sun is at its peak, so is your digestive fire, because we kind of mimic that in the day cycle. Even your mind is at its peak, right? Most of your productive work will get done between 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. In the morning, people come, they're saying hi to everybody. Everybody's drinking coffee at work, and kind of like, because you're still in the wet and sluggish phase till about 10 o'clock. So it's, to pick up pace is a little bit harder. At 10 o'clock, people are like suddenly get to their desks. Between 10 and 2, you get the most work done. Also, your system gets hot and metabolic, like it's ready to process food. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I know for most people, for me at least, if I don't get lunch, I get hangry. So you're hungry, but you're also angry because your body becomes hot. If you don't get dinner, you become cranky. Lack of dinner makes you cranky and like, whiny. But lack of lunch can make you hangry because your body is naturally hot at that point. So that is the time to do your most of your work. And you also want to take advantage of that hot environment in your system and eat your biggest meal, all your indulgences, which is not how our work life is designed now. But with the lockdown, it's something that is possible. Take a lunch break, really make it happen. Keep your biggest meal. Like, this is going to buy you 15 years of health, right? I'm not going to say 15 years of life, because our systems can make us live forever not feeling the best, but it's going to buy you 15 years of health to just do this one thing. Have a bigger lunch and have a lighter dinner. Yes, we will talk about intermittent fasting. A bunch of people have talked about it. It comes from Ayurveda, by the way. What happens between 2 and 6, right? It becomes windy. You see that. You see outside the sun is setting. At 4 o'clock, you have that, you have that kind of like, I want to wind down. 3, 4. That's because the environment is becoming windy. The sun is setting. The minute the sun starts dipping, your body's energy also starts dipping. What we usually do is we go get a second charge of caffeine. I personally have not, I love my chai. I have it only sparingly, maybe once in 2 3 weeks, and I'll have a little cup. But that's just recently that I've decided to like not do chai. If you want to keep it, please keep it. Don't have to give it up. But if you want to, I would I would try things like tulsi tea, which is also a stimulant, peppermint tea. That's what you want to do. If you can, you want to eat dinner before 6:30. And of course, this is assuming that the sun sets at 6:30, because then you still at least have, while the sun is out, and if you have dinner, that still kind of is the right time to eat dinner. I eat dinner at 5:36 most days. When I have friends over or I'm going out, then it is what it is. But when I'm home, it's a 5:36 dinner, and that really works for me. You can skip breakfast, yes. And I'll tell you what the replacement for skipping breakfast is, if we have the time. There is actually another way to nourish your body in the morning, which is brilliant, without eating anything. So that's the time. So between 2 and 6, allow yourself to wind down if you can. Between 6 to 10 at night, the energies in the universe are actually earthy and grounding. Birds are kind of going back to their nest, things are really settling. It becomes very earthy. And that's the time to connect and introspect. It's a very grounding time. At that point, if you connect and introspect, you probably even get a good night's sleep. When you get hungry, you can have a warm glass of milk. What happens between 10 and 2 at night? And this is what the West is spending a lot of time in. Harvard researchers are working. They're like, hey, something magical happens in your body, that your serotonin, or your awake hormone, goes down, and your melatonin, or your sleep hormone, there's a spike in it, which means that it's a really good time to sleep. You can get your deepest sleep between the hours of 10 and 2, because your body will never do this kind of melatonin increase again later. And if you manage to fall asleep closer to 10, you're actually giving your body 4 hours of something that's called cellular repair and metabolism. So your body at that time, it's the time like, hey, go to sleep, human being. I have to repair everything that was from the day. All the cells that need to be thrown out, whatever needs to be done. It's a little cleanup that your body does. It's free healing time. It's completely free healing time between 10 and 2. When you don't take this window of opportunity, like I know in my family, the minute people are anybody has slight symptom, we sleep before 10. And that just by sleeping between 10 and 2, it's like you actually going to the doctor, getting a visit and feeling better, but you're actually sleeping in your bed, but you get that same experience without like having to do all of this. It's amazing. So I would say this, as much as you can, sleeping between 10 and 2 is something that you want to try and do on as many days as you can. Because you're also, if you stay up, right now, when you're staying up, your body's like, I want to repair, but you're staying up, so I need twice the energy, and none of the job is well done. Your body gets naturally hungry between 10 and 2 at night. If you end up staying up, it's very, very natural for your body to get hungry, because it's consuming twice the energy. And you want to eat at that point. I'm not a big fan of staying up and eating at night, but if you do, a warm glass of milk is great. And quickly, what happens between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. is that the etheric energies, right? So there are 5 elements which we've not even talked about, but the ether in the universe, there's a subtle energy that is awakened. In India, we understand that as Brahma Muhurat around 4:30. And that subtle energy that's really kind of come into the universe allows people, if you're awake during that time, right? You're going to be anxious. If you wake up before 2 a.m., you may still go back to sleep. You wake up after 2 a.m., your mind, it's very hard to go back to sleep, because your mind will start thinking. Because at that point, your nervous system becomes active. The repair is done. There is space created in your nervous system. Gunk has gone out. Anything you think about will make a home in your system. That's why it's said that it's a great time to learn something new, to read your shastras, to meditate, because your system is ready to receive in that way. So I would say between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m., if you can sleep for as much time of that, you should sleep. And if you wake up, it's not a time you want to just lay in bed. It's a time you want to do something productive. Even if it means at 6 a.m. you go and take another nap. But if those of you who don't get sleep, you want to either put on a yoga nidra tape, a meditation tape, you want to read something which is good for your system, because your system is ready to receive. But if you let it be, it's going to give you really thoughts which are not going to serve you and really make a home in your psyche. So my favorite practices, I just want to leave you guys with some of my favorite practices as well. But anyways, my favorite practice, the breakfast replacement that I wanted to talk about, is something called Abhyanga, or oil massage. And that is actually something that you can do every day. Ayurveda recommends that as dinacharya, which means something that you do on a daily basis. In the summer, or if your body is very sweaty and clammy, in certain conditions, you can't do Abhyanga. But I would say in winter months, or even for the most of the year, you want to take either a sesame oil. You also get a lot of oils for this purpose that are medicated, which I really like. And you warm that oil. And before you exercise, you actually apply that oil on your body. You do a little bit of massage. It takes 5 or 6 or 10 minutes at the most. And I keep mine in a spray bottle. And before I actually do yoga, I put that oil massage. And then you practice yoga, or expose yourself to indirect sunlight. And what happens is that these oils in the morning, especially when you practice asana or any kind of exercise, your channels open up and oil penetrates deep into your tissues, even to tissues like bone marrow, and nourishes your body. Because even though you want to eat before you exercise, you should not eat through your digestive system. Because the heat in your gut is used for exercise, and that food starts fermenting, just sitting there, and nothing happens with that food. So that Abhyanga, or oil massage, as a dinacharya, is one of the most brilliant practices. And in indirect sunlight means that you're not actually going out in the sun and hanging out too much. You stay, like, this is indirect sunlight. What I'm getting right now is indirect sunlight. I'm inside the house, the sunlight is coming. And vitamin D, guys, vitamin D, which you get from the sunlight, the absorption of vitamin D is really maximized when you can oil Abhyanga. Yes, it is also beauty therapy, but it's just It's a nervous therapy, it's a beauty therapy, it's a bone marrow therapy, it is a vitamin D therapy. It is just therapy after therapy. It is brilliant. So what kind of oil to be used? If you're in a cold place, or if your body is cold or you're in a cold environment, use sesame oil. And if it's really hot and summery, you can use coconut, or you can even use olive. And there's certain oils that I really like. There's something called Chandan Bala Lakshadi, but not everybody can use those oils. So I'm going to refrain from giving a lot of those names. But sesame oil in a cold place or a cold body is the best. Summer, you can't use sesame oil. It's okay to skip Abhyanga in a summer humid weather. Okay. The other practice that I want to recommend is Nasya. And this again is just instilling 1 or 2 drops of this oil, Anu Taila, in your nose every morning. And what it does, and we've discovered this in the West also, that the blood, you can't access your brain, right? It's very protected with the skull, but there is one place where the blood brain barrier, you have access to that. You have access to the entry. The blood brain barrier does not exist, and that is through your nose. And in Ayurveda, they said very clearly, Nasa hi sirsho dwaram. Nose is the gateway to the brain. And in the West now, when the researchers didn't even know this and they did it, this is exactly what they said, that nose is the gateway to the brain. And in conditions like Alzheimer's, they've understood the connection between that there's something that we can use the nose for, and figure this cerebral spinal fluid, which basically replenishes your myelin sheath, helps you with Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, all those diseases. Nasya will take care of all of that. If you practice Nasya every day for the rest of your life, it will keep replenishing your brain health, eye health, sinus health, facial health, hair health, everything. So the way you nourish the top of your body is through Nasya. And I will tell you, if you buy the Nasya oil, and if it's too sharp for you, it's probably not made right. You want to try a different brand. There is a brand called, I think, Vaidya Ratnavali. It looks really terrible. The bottle looks really like very old and one of those really homemade bottles, but that I have seen my clients to be always, feeling very good about that. It's not too sharp. So Nasya is actually very easy to practice anytime. It's one of those things that you can actually practice morning, night, after food, before food. But you don't want to go into the shower right after Nasya as soon as you do it. And you don't want to drink alcohol as soon as you do Nasya. These are the 2 things you want to be careful of. But you can do Nasya. I do it first thing in the morning. It's near my bedside, which also means I don't shower right after. And tongue scraping, it's so easy. We all know in India, a lot of people do no ghee for Nasya, no ghee for Nasya. Ghee kind of coagulates. Oil is sukshma, which means it's penetrating. It goes to all your channels. Ghee is thula, it's guru, which means it's heavy and it can get coagulated and condensed. Yeah, Mrinal, that's true. That's true. Pranayam, which is more of a yogic practice, not an Ayurvedic practice, but I recommend pranayama as well, especially alternate nostril breathing. And the 2 other things which are often missed, and that's why I wanted to talk about this, is no eating right before asana, no eating before exercise, and no showering right after eating. Because when you're eating, you want the heat you want the body temperature to not fluctuate or to be distracted in any other activities when you're eating. After you eat, your body needs that little time to digest. So yeah, that was it. My 2 principles, just to kind of tell you again. One was that we are warm and moist. We want to always understand the climate of our body and bring it back to warm and moist. And the second thing was that we're diurnal mammals. We want to honor the opportunities, I would say, that the sun brings with it, and honor the opportunities that the moon brings with it, and then follow that on that path to keep on that, so that we can maximize what benefits we get out of it. And really, I mean, I feel like health becomes cakewalk when that happens. And I tell you, I've experienced that from my own journey, because even growing up, I was a rebel. Even though I grew up in an Ayurvedic family, I did everything wrong that I was not supposed to do. And I experienced tremendous discomfort. And when I've gone on this path, knock on wood, it's really a game changer.